This week on the Blast Off with Bray, we're making our way to the Pacific Northwest. We found an angler that's not only fishing in the BAM Super 60 Pro Tour, but he's made a career out of fishing as well. Not just bass. He's a standard sturgeon fisherman. He's a steelhead fisherman, a salmon angler. He's pretty much an all-in-one angler, and that's why his social media handles are Gone Catchin'. So we're going to be pulling in Cameron Black, a legend out here in the Pacific Northwest. He's really made a career for himself over the last couple years, and we're lucky to have him on the show. So, what have you been gone catching lately,
Man, we're
Cameron?
just wrapping up our spring Chinook season. So we've got some openers that happened on the Columbia River. It's kind of where I based out of fish and based out of and fish out of. And now we're kind of switching gears a little bit. We're going to head up north and do some fishing in Alaska next week and then kind of get ready to do some more salmon fishing when we get back, when we get some other openers.
And you said you're not just going to be fishing in Alaska, you're going to be making a little bit of a documentary and getting some of that covered. How long have you been kind of getting into the social media promotion space? And I guess how impactful has that been for your journey as becoming one of the largest outfitters on the Pacific Northwest right
I
now?
mean, it's funny because I look at my Facebook thing and I get memories from 17 years ago, from the spring salmon season. So we've been doing this for a while. I've been guiding for 22 years, and then also part of the Addicted Fishing brand, and that over the last 11, 12 years has been pretty instrumental in like our social media reach and what we do. And in fact, what we're doing next week is we're going to go and do some stuff for the sportsman shows for coming up here next year, but it's just the seasonality. We got to go fishing now. But no, I think it's important. I think it's huge. We've gotten a pretty massive following. Some of our pages, have over 400,000 Northwest fishermen, very salmon, steelhead, and trout centric. But uh, a lot of people really like to see kind of like the bass side is just so different to them, so they follow me. And so when I go to sportsman shows and stuff like that, I answer more about how my tournament season's going versus where the next salmon bite is. It's pretty funny. So we utilize it a lot, and it's very important. I mean, it's part of the game these days, and as you know, and with what BAM does, it's like it's just like it or hate it, doesn't matter. Don't hate, it's the game, you got to do it.
And how did you get into the bass fishing sector? I mean, it's so different from salmon and steelhead. And really, I guess it comes down to the love for the bite and targeting a key species that fights hard and fishes well. But I guess what was your backstory on bass fishing specifically? How'd you kind of expand into becoming a guide in some of these other areas as well? And I guess how does it all work together at the end of the
Well, I
day?
mean, back in my childhood, I loved to bass fish. You had local ponds and stuff, and tore them up, all summer long. Basically, kind of, then kind of started getting into the salmon steelhead thing right out of high school and through college. I worked for the Fish and Wildlife Department here in Washington for about 7 years. But within that, kind of learning a lot of the salmon and steelhead fisheries, kind of gravitated more towards guiding. And then it kind of became a little bit of a conflict of interest working for the state and being a guide at the same time. So decided to take the latter path and haven't regretted that for like the last 22 years. But just kind of within the salmon and steelhead, just meeting people and stuff like that. I've met a couple of my good buddies, Tom and Craig, and tournament bass guys up here through and through for 20, 25 years. And about probably 6, 7 years ago now, they really invited me to fish a couple tournaments, fished as a co with Craig through some of the other TBF stuff that we had up here in Oregon, and just freaking fell in love with it. I mean, my salmon and steelhead stuff now, like I said, I've guided for 22 years on this. It's my work, but like my passion and like what I want to do more and more and more is just competitive fish. And whether it be bass or salmon, it's kind of hard to competitively salmon fish. So bass it is, and I've been hooked ever since. So it's been a pretty wild ride these last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, it seems like you're really doing well for yourself in the industry, doing well in the Super 60 Pro Tour events. I mean, you've had some pretty strong finishes. You're probably really looking forward to going to Brownlee Reservoir, which is somewhat in your home state at least. And then you're going to be going to the Columbia River where I'm sure you'll be ripping them up pretty well. But I mean, an angler is only as good as his office, and I guess it kind of goes anywhere. I mean, whether you're in the workforce or a guide for salmon and steelhead. But I know you got a brand new rig this year for your guiding business. But what are you running? I guess for your bass boat, your guide boat, and what I guess what kind of partners do you work with on
So
that?
I run a Cayman CX20 for my bass boat, and then my on my salmon side of things, I have an aluminum weld Columbia XL. It's kind of the first of a model that kind of got to help do a little bit of the designing with, and we've spent the last few months kind of dialing in, and that's for an aluminum weld boat, and just kind of going just back and forth and asking about my partners and sponsors, kind of like where a lot of this like bass stuff on the pro side really came from was a lot of my partners that I have on the salmon side, whether it be Akuma, Addicted Fishing, Fish USA, a lot of these guys that I've worked with for, 8, 10, 12 years in some of these partnerships. When I kind of brought up the idea about, chasing out some of this pro stuff on the bass side, I fished a lot of tournaments locally, have done well on like some of the TBF stuff out here, and kind of threw it to them a little bit like, hey, you guys want to support this and you guys want to try to see what we can do here, and every one of them was all in. So I've had those relationships with those guys through the salmon thing, but kind of bridging the gap over to the bass side, and it's been really beneficial for that. So that's helped me out along the way. And then of course when BAM put the call out 2 years ago for anglers, I applied and sent Mark a whole bunch of scores and from tournaments, all the tournaments I fished the year before, and managed to get into the Super 60 for it. So it's just kind of taking it off, even though it's drinking from a fire hose. In a lot of situations, you say I have a lot of good finishes in the Super 60, but I wouldn't say they've all been good. I've had to learn some lessons because just kind of being a Northwest centric salmon steelhead guy, it's been a freaking challenge. But that's kind of also the format. Like that's kind of to be expected for a lot of these guys, and I think that's also what makes it fun. So it's kind of cool to keep bouncing back and forth. As much as I'd rather be out there smoking smallies right now in the Columbia, unfortunately, got to go salmon fishing. But next week, after next week, it'll be a little more bass.
I mean, what is the crossover with that? I mean, when you're learning how to bass fish, I mean, there's so much involved from the rods you have to use to the different techniques to bait casters for spinning setups. And I mean, the same goes for salmon and steelhead to an extent as well. And I mean, I know when you talk about bass fishing and the best crossover for me when I'm going down to Oregon is just twitch a jig for steelhead. But I mean, how much of a crossover is there and how much of a difference in learning and I guess the curve to learn is there between the
Depends on
two?
what you're doing, right? Because so one thing, fishing a lot of local tournaments, fish a lot of bass stuff. Like I caught on pretty quick, kind of in my home kind of territory. Was able to, some of those Southern Oregon lakes still get me, but Columbia River, we'll just say like picked up on it good. But until you start kind of fishing tournaments, right? Like salmon and steelhead, I can get dropped in anywhere. In fact, this movie we're filming is literally that. They're sending us to a couple islands in the middle of Alaska, and they're like, figure out how to catch steelhead, guys. Good luck. Like, but steelhead, like everywhere, are kind of the same. And one thing that I'm seeing, like when you talk about like crossover, is that there really isn't any crossover because the bass, at least tournament grade bass, are 1,000 times more difficult to catch than salmon and steelhead. Like they really truly are. Like as an example, going to like Havasu just a few short weeks ago. Thought I was going to be onto something, wasn't. But I can get dropped anywhere on the West Coast and even on the East Coast in the Mid Lake, Great Lakes, and I'm able to catch salmon and steal it pretty well. The bass, I can't. So as much as there is some like kind of like not, I wouldn't say crossover, but just being able to go somewhere and be able to just catch salmon and steelhead at will versus doing it with bass, like you can't do it with bass. Like you can't. They're smarter. So that's been a little bit of a learning curve. And you only really learn that tournament fishing because I could get dropped in, we'll just say Clear Lake, California, not during a tournament, have a great day of fishing and think that you're just killing it until you fish against half the guys, or let me phrase that, all the guys on your guys' Super 60. And then you quickly realize like, yeah, you were catching them, but you weren't catching them like those guys. So it's been a challenge, man. Uh, and sometimes sometimes it's pretty tough.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you take me up to the Trinity River on the flip side, though, and you'll watch me struggle for a steelhead all day long. So, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of that thing where once you get a knack for a certain style of fishing and you keep dialing it in, it just gets easier and easier. And I mean, now that you've seen these desert fisheries, I'm sure that crossover will change depending on where we go next year. I mean, the smallmouth kind of all react to somewhat similar depending on what body of water you're on. But all in all, I guess it really is time on the water, those experiences that you're getting, and what that looks like. But I guess what about technique wise? You're being up in the Northwest, you do have a lot of different options. You've got some trophy grade spotted bass lakes that are pretty much under the radar, and then you've got some great fisheries like the Columbia for smallmouth and good largemouth fisheries as well. I guess what's your bread and butter? What do you have the most confidence in, and what do you have
So
tied
my
on?
it's funny because I was listening to one of your podcasts and I was listening to Mark Pilgrim and he was talking about, chasing smallmouth with the jerkbait with the live. And like that's been like my forte. And I can't remember what he called it, but when he'd find the bass like up off the bottom, right? I call those bass being in ready position. When I can find that anywhere, I love it. I love it too. It was interesting because listening to these guys, just being more exposed to the Super 60, that's my hands down favorite way. If I can do that with the jerk bait anywhere, I'm all about it. Hands down favorite fishery. And there's a lot of times during the year you can find that setup on the Columbia River. When it comes to like some of the spotted bass stuff, we do have a few of those lakes up here, but we don't have I wouldn't say any like home spotted bass fishery. In fact, some of the most stuff I've been doing with that has been, at Lake Shasta. And then, of course, at Don Pedro, which was the first Super 60 tournament I fished in. And I mean, I can kind of correlate those spotted bass to smallmouth because coincidentally, like that first tournament I fished, I was able to top 10 with a jerkbait rod in my hand chasing spots. Of course, when you got to day 3, you got to figure out where the big ones are. And that was a whole different story. But that tends to be my favorite way uh, my favorite way to do it, favorite way to fish them.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of times, I guess going off topic here, but when guys are guides full time like what you're doing, it's really hard to get away to go fish a bass tournament. And I mean there's guys like John Pearl on Clear Lake. When you've got something so dialed in that you can charge a couple $100 a day and it's easy money, and then you're gambling for 3 days on the water and spending Airbnb bills, and, I mean, it's a costly sport to get into. Do you look at it as, I mean, another revenue stream? Is it a vacation for you? Is it another way to market yourself and expand? I guess what is that bass fishing, and what does it look like for you?
For me, it's really two things. It's my fishing now. Like that's what I call my fishing. That's what like I'm watching YouTube videos and out playing and pouring plastics and working in the garage. Like that's like my fishing. The salmon stealing stuff's just kind of like the work now. But the second part to this is if I got a 16-year-old son. He just turned 16 last week, and I fish a lot of the tournaments, a lot of the club tournaments with him up here. And so trying to get myself a little more, involved and into that sport because I know that's what he wants to do. And I think he's got the knack and the skills and the talent to do it. So as much as it's, I don't want to call it another revenue stream when you're fishing against guys like Ty and Colby and everything. It's tough to carve that niche out because you got such great anglers in the Super 60. However, like getting help with the sponsors, being able to supply them that, and then also being able to learn that for my son is kind of like definitely a couple of the main reasons why I'm trying to be as involved in it as I am.
Yeah, and another thing that you just kind of said is, I mean, that partnership, I guess, monetary value, product value, mainly relationship value in general, is extremely critical to be successful as a professional fisherman of any sort, whether that is guiding or if it's bass fishing. I mean, what you said you listened to Mark's podcast. He was talking a lot about how important connections are, maintaining that relationship and over delivering. But is it pretty similar in your line of work as well, and sponsors that are in both sides of the industry? Or I guess what's your I guess, tactics, keys? What advice can you give on
Well, I
sponsorship?
mean, absolutely. So like maintaining those relationships, like, I'm one of them Okua guys out here, and I've known those guys for, I mean, more than like 10, 15 years now, working with them on the salmon side. So maintaining those relationships, always kind of catering to their needs. And then that's real important too. But I mean, obviously it's the most important thing, but also like establishing and finding, um, when it comes to these brands or these partners or these stores or whatever you're trying to look for, finding a champion for you within that business is really paramount because, um, you have a guy that's, you're wanting things from the company's wanting things from you, but also having that guy on the inside that you have that relationship, your champion is really, really important to maintaining those like long term and developing um, sponsorships. And so, I mean, everybody's got to do cold calls. Everybody's got to like walk in and slide the slide the folder across the desk to the front reception lady or whatever like that sometimes. But trying to always just keeping your ear open and keeping your opportunities in front of you. Participating in sportsman shows. A lot of my partners and sponsors that I've had over the years too were just happenstance clients that have been in my boat and been talked with them and uh you know presented that, yeah, we got this going on the salmon side, or now we have this thing going on the bass side, and we do want to be a part of it, and being able to help them out fulfill their needs too, and getting them as much exposure as they can. So fishermen like to spend money, and a lot of companies, whether they're endemic or non-endemic, like fishermen, it's not a it's this thing that we do, it's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle, whether it's salmon or bass. Like, there's no doubt about it. And so when you're trying to get your product in front of a bunch of eyeballs, and it's always a positive thing because it's fishing, it's what people want to turn into. It can be a pretty easy sell. So I'm not going to say that it's easy to go out there and get those sponsors and to get those partnerships, but we do have as fishermen as a whole, we do have an extremely marketable product. And I think if more companies, more of these non-endemic companies, got a little more exposure to us, I think they'd be all jumping on board.
At Black Bear Diner, we believe a great meal should feel like a warm hug, like our Bear's Choice breakfast. Start with 2 farm fresh eggs, cooked just the way you like. Choose from our one-of-a-kind sweet cream pancakes, homemade biscuits and gravy, or indulge in cinnamon roll French toast. Add your choice of thick-cut smoked bacon or homemade sausage patties. That's a Bear's Choice, your very own warm bear hug.
Good old-fashioned family food, Black Bear Diner.
Here at Bridgeford, we make all of our products with 100% American beef and pork. We source everything exclusively from the United States for our beef jerky, pepperoni, summer sausage, and salami.
We've always focused on having the highest quality products. We do that by investing in new cutting-edge technology while still trying to maintain the old world values that our great-grandfather instilled in us.
Being a family company, we like to think of a lot of our products as being for family occasions and get-togethers. We like to think of our products being made by our family for your family.
Yeah, I mean, you made a good point right there on non-endemics, especially, are really a very hard market to tap into. You have to know someone that likes fishing or that does have it as a hobby and that's willing to invest. And that's why we do have some great non-endemic partners with BAM, with the podcast, with Simpson University, where I coach, especially Bridgeford Foods. They're the largest non-endemic sponsor in bass fishing right now, and they're supporting the West Coast in a very, very big way. And the same for Black Bear Diner. And it's with that kind of support that we're able to do what we do and continue to grow at a manageable and steady level. Also, with that, having that return on investment, I mean, 22 years of guiding experience, being marketable, having all these different streams of media outlets. When was that point that turned or that switch that clicked that you actually knew that you had something that was promotable and that was, I mean, going to create a return on
Back
investment?
probably when I was just kind of starting when I left the state and just kind of really started into my guiding thing. I was getting pretty proficient at catching them, and started really just doing. I hit the seminar and the sportsman show scene. Like, I mean, if somebody asked me and they were a 3-hour drive away to go talk to some 20-man group with some of the conservation organizations or whatever it was, I was there and I did it for years. I made it a point that, you know what, I might work in the morning, but part of my work, if I want that work in the morning, is I have to work in the evening and I had to drive out there. And so I really, and that was kind of like when social media like Facebook was really kind of starting to take off as well. But I was putting myself out there. Like I see, at least in the guiding it side of things, and even as for as long as I've been guiding, I see a lot of guys that they put the jersey on, or they get the guide license, or they get these things, and then they think that it's just gonna come to me. Like I'm the guy now. They're gonna not, and that doesn't happen. Like I mean, maybe it happens for a few of those guys out there on the elites. You know what I mean? But like for the most part, the guys that are like just getting into it, just starting to do it, like you got to go do stuff. Like you can't just make a Facebook post every now and then and just kind of hope for the best. Like you got to go, you have to go get it. So that's what I did, and really got my career. I had one of the largest bank sponsors in the region for a lot of years. Had a champion there for a while, and was able to like really push through that, and that helped. And then of course picked up a lot of the more endemic, the Akuma fishing, and we did Mustad for a while. Dick did all these brands. I just picked them up here and there along the way, and just stayed with them ever since.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like things are going well for you, and that consistency shows what kind of product you're producing. So you're obviously doing something right, and it is very critical to have that FaceTime as well. If you're not going to the ISE show, if you're not going to ICAST in Florida, the Bassmaster Classic, all these massive trade shows where these industry people are at, you're kind of missing the mark there. I mean, I actually went to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame this year, and the amount of influential industry leaders that I met would blow your mind. And you're talking to them in the back of a hotel parking lot when they're having drinks, and they're loose, they're easy to connect with. You're there having a good time, and it's all about just connecting at the right time. You don't walk into the owner's work expecting to talk to him right off the bat. You have to kind of maintain that relationship and let them know who you are and that you are valuable. So, let's talk a little bit about just, I mean, I guess what the sports looked like for you in general. What are some of your best memories from guiding when you're taking out one of those young kids that has never caught a salmon, or 85-year-old catching one of their last fish they may ever catch? I mean, what makes being a guide so
I
worth it?
mean, those are two of many that you brought up. In fact, just last year, I even had a couple of those where it was definitely going to be an individual's last fishing trip, and those ones kind of hit home a little harder. But a lot of the kids coming out, a lot of people that have scratch their heads for many years, because steelhead are easy to catch, but they're hard to find. So it's like sometimes you just need someone to help you find them, and seeing that, when they finally get to connect and catch one of these fish, or whether it's another client that's treating, five of his clients in my boat just for a good time, and they're making sales calls to these people and stuff. Like there's so many different aspects of it. And with that said, probably one of the most entertaining thing about guiding, and why I keep doing this, because like every day it can be a grind, but like every day is different, and you have different. Every situation could be, every those guys step in your boat, and you don't know what it's going to be. Like it can, like you said, it could be a kid, it could be a last trip, it could be family affair. They haven't seen each other for a long time, bachelor parties. I mean, it's all sorts of different stuff. So, I'd say like, yeah, I mean, it's just different every day.
And I guess that's probably why you love it so much as well, is because it's different. You're always doing something different. You can't expect those fish to always bite, but you can always put an honest effort for a good client. And I mean, what are client expectations? What should they be? I mean, you can't go out there expecting to catch your PB, obviously. But I mean, what's a good client versus what's a client that makes the day a little bit longer?
Oh, the clients that think they know how to salmon fish, but then they're hiring me to go salmon fishing. Those make the days. Sometimes those make them go a little longer, but everything's so developed now in the industry, where it's a lot of the stuff, the techniques that we do, whether we're 360 fishing, or whether we're bobber dog and whatever it might be. We're very systematic, and so it's like I could put 6 8-year-olds in my boat, and for the most part, if they listen and have a moderate uh common sense versus a bunch of 35-year-olds in the boat, I'm probably going to catch the same amount of fish, like for the most part. Like it's not um it's not, like I said, everything is so systematic with what we do, now that it doesn't change too much from day to day and stuff like that.
Awesome. And I mean, what about the sturgeon side? Is that kind of just a side deal if someone really wants to do it, or do you really
That's
target
just what
those, I mean, trophy
Yeah,
class
that's just what
sturgeon?
you want to do. So the other thing I was going to say before too, it's our ideal client. A lot of the clients up here are looking for, like, they're here because it's consumptive. Like they're here to catch a salmon to bring it home to barbecue. They might be different folks and different skill levels, but they want to kill them. So when it comes to that sturgeon, uh, we have an insanely large sturgeon population. Like people don't realize how many sturgeon we have, but since it's catch and release up here only, we have a very, very, very few days that you can keep them. In fact, it was limited down to 1 day this year in the Bonneville pool. That You don't have a lot of people that want to go do it. That want to go catch them, even though I could go out any 365 days a year and catch them anywhere between 30 and 60 of them in a half a day. Like it is phenomenal, especially if you travel with the fish a little bit, and they're all 3 to 8 feet long. Like, and then there's even some real giants there. So it's, as much as we have that fishery and people like to do it, like I said, more of our clients are like, they want to bring something home. And so that's where we lean more towards the salmon and the steelhead and the bottom fish and lingcod and stuff like that.
So you do lean cod as well and rock fishing. Do you want to elaborate on that? And I mean, that's a whole nother market in itself going
Yeah.
out offshore. And I know you won't catch me out there because I'll be seasick before we ever stop for the first drop. But I mean, talk a little bit about that. How much different that is. I mean, big cabezon and rockfish and lings, they put up a good fight too. Much like, I mean, spooning for bass, but it's a very, very niche
Yeah,
market as well.
it's pretty monstrous on the Oregon coast. But one of the favorite things I like to do is a lot of people associate bottom fishing with like a big heavy lead and a bunch of shrimp flies, and you go down and just drop down 100 feet and catch them. But what I kind of specialize in is actually doing the shallow water stuff with a little 7 foot rod and about a half ounce or a 3/4 ounce swim bait head, and you're going bass fishing along the jetty, and that's like, and it's kind of even funny too, because we go out there and we use our lives and our forward facing sonars and find the schools, and it's just like, yeah, you're out there just feeding on like a school of smallmouth, except for that school's about 100 to 200 fish long, and they're all 3 to 6 pounds. Like it can get
Well,
pretty fun. So yeah, it's completely different than the sturgeon and the salmon. We do that all summer long, and we're gonna start doing that fishery in like kind of June through about early September.
and do you use the high-end ocean live scope that they have set up just
No,
for
like,
ocean fishing and
yeah, those
offshore?
60s, no, we don't need that range, honestly, to do what we do, even for the salmon. I mean, the commercial guys, they need it, but for what we do, we're just using, like the Mega Live 2s and stuff like that, just hanging them off, but we're just hanging them off the back of the boat on transom mounts, and then we utilize those and see it like all through the river fisheries and even up in the tiny rivers. We'll back down into holes and then look out the back of the boat, and if we don't see salmon, and let's be honest, like the salmon are very easy to see compared to sometimes the bass that like to sandwich to the bottom and cruise real low. Like for the most part, those fish will suspend, and they're big. Like they're not, some bass are bigger than salmon. I get it, but like they're big for the most part. We won't even cast a line if we don't see them because they do show themselves that well, and it's changing the whole. Just changing the whole world up here.
Wow, and I mean, that's crazy. In our mindset, people are going ballistic that Live Scope is in the Elite Series and in
Yeah.
MLF, and they're not even thinking that it's in the offshore fishing, that it's steelhead and sturgeon fish. Or, I mean, you can see them on sturgeon, but salmon fishing. And I mean, yeah, it's kind of taken a grasp everywhere. Do you think that's a positive effect, negative, customer positivity versus, I mean, I guess what's it look like for on a guide standpoint?
It does help me catch more fish. Um, There's no doubt about it. It's changing. It has been changing the salmon and steelhead world. Not maybe not so much steelhead, but really the salmon world, or at least the big water steelhead world. Uh, and as far as like, let's just say this, like when I first got the live on the guide boat, you'd sit there and I'd be watching it on my screen that's like locked in my side box that I can see that my clients couldn't see. But once we had started developing the lives and you're watching and you're telling, okay, guys, he's coming up to that rod, he's looking at it, he's going to bite it, right? All those clients that were sitting in the front of the boat are now on the back of the boat watching the screen, not watching their darn rods. So we actually had to put other screens on the boat for them that they can see and watch because they are so infatuated with it. It is fun. As far as from a guiding standpoint, I can go to an area and make a couple passes. And if I'm not, fish will bite on the tides and, they're salmon and seal, they're not eating anything, for the most part, they're just reacting to what we're doing. But it's always nice to know that they're there and, kind of like bass too, like if they come up and flare to the gear a few times, we can adjust that presentation, whether we size it up or down or color or scent or chemical or whatever we're using. And then we can then watch a few more fish look at it and start to get the actual bites and the reaction we want. So it makes us way more efficient for the guys that have grasped it and have gotten really good at it. And I wish I could say that I was as good with my live scope and a damn minnow rod for bass as I am for salmon and steelhead, because I'm not.
You also said something that caught my attention, and that was scent. I know I love using some Pro Gear. I mean, it works fantastic for me. They've been a great partner of mine as well. How much does scent change the game if that's going to get a steelhead to react or whatever the fish
So
may
yeah,
be?
Procure's been a partner of ours for probably almost 15 years, and they're awesome. Steve and Jason and Phil and the guys, man, they're absolutely killer. But scent for salmon is kind of one of those things where you could have 30 boats in an area fishing, and 2 boats are catching, and everyone's using salmon eggs, but those 2 boats have the right chemical triggers, and we use everything from like sodium sulfites, metabosulfites, amino acids. We get real crazy with the scent. What will trigger a salmon upriver to bite that egg versus the other egg is like the difference sometimes between like night and day, especially when salmon reabsorb parts of their digestive tract. Like they're not eating, like they're only biting out of either curiosity or some other kind of instinctive trigger to make them bite it. But the chemicals and the scents that Procure utilizes and that we put on like that to differentiate ourselves from our competition sometimes is like absolutely everything. And I wish, I found some things kind of like that correlate a little bit with the on the bass side of things too, but not as not as pronounced as in the salmon side yet. I'm still working on that.
Okay, well, good to know. I think you just gave us a little bit of a chemistry lesson as well. And for everyone tuning in, I kind of want to be your sponsor as well. So as soon as the Blast Off with Bray and Bray's Outdoor Productions hits 250 subscribers on YouTube, you're following along on Bray's Outdoor Productions on Instagram. We're already giving away a free pair of Costa Broadbill 2s to one lucky subscriber. We're also going to throw in some Pro Gear too, so make sure you guys are following along. Like I said, it works fantastic, and if you don't have it in your boat, you're missing out on a few key bites that could win you a tournament, get you that salmon of a lifetime, or get you that 16-foot sturgeon. So make sure you guys are not missing out on that. The last topic I want to hit, what about some of those crazy stories in your documentaries? Have you been steelhead fishing in this beautiful, vast scenery and you had to turn around and there's a grizzly bear behind you eating salmon next to you? Or what's the weirdest, wildest story that you've had in a documentary?
Some of the oh goodness, we've put me on the spot on that. Nothing as crazy as yeah, where we're going, we might get eaten by a black bear this week, but no, nothing. Oh my gosh, you're really putting me on a you're really putting me on a spot. I think it is whenever we go and film these movies, these movies we film at we present at like the Pacific Northwest, Washington Sportsman Show, Central Oregon. Like we present these movies as premieres. And then they're actually they end up on our YouTube channel on Addicted Fishing too. But I think it's weird because I'd say the strangest thing is whenever we go to do them, we always struggle really, really bad for a few days, and then we always like knock it out of the park. And this is going to be like the 6th actual full length movie we're making. And so I think a weird coincidence or something strange would be just this watch every single time we go to do one of these things. It just develops, and then it almost makes the movie itself, and it doesn't take any creative editing or, you know, any antics on our side to make it happen. But it is kind of a weird knack. But no grizzly bears popping out of the woods yet.
All right, so it's not quite meat eater, but it still sounds like it's pretty exciting. If you guys did hear that, check it out on Addicted Fishing. I know I'm going to be watching a few YouTube videos tonight. But we appreciate you having coming on here, talking with us, telling a little bit about what your world looks like, how you've expanded into the bass fishing side. But what's one piece of advice for that aspiring angler that you'll leave it out there? Help them to get that confidence they need to be that great steelhead fisherman, to be that great bass fisherman, or just to make a career in the industry in general. What should you leave them with and get them on that right track?
Do not be a one trick pony. Do not be a one trick pony. I see a lot of it in our salmon steel world. They'll get really proficient, and this could help me in the Super 60, honestly. But I should take my own advice. But don't get settled into catching like one fish in one way, because the day that you show up and you do that, and as you're starting to learn, as you're starting to develop, you catch that first steelhead on a spinner at this hole in this river in this time of year. Like, don't think that that's the only time that you can do it. Like, you need to learn how to do it in all the other times and all the other places and all the other techniques and stuff like that. So I think over the last, my whole career, we've seen some huge developments in, going from trolling salmon one way to another, like where we've started with the triangles. Now we're doing the 360 thing, even on the side drifting steelhead to bobber dogging, and then even like throwing wigglers for coho and then to twitching. um, Always be looking at that new stuff. And now the guys that looked at the forward facing sonar for the minnows, like they were kind of seeing it, grasping it, they got out and learned it. And the guys that have done it now, like, I mean, look what's going on. So like, just don't get one tracked, don't get one tracked, don't be tunnel vision, don't have, be always be looking, always be exploring, because the guys, like you said, the guys that aren't doing that, they're gonna get left in the dust.
All right, it sounds like I need to pick up something else besides a Yamamoto Senko and hula grub.
That for me
Um,
too, but let me add one more piece to that too, and like going learning that new thing, like that's actually how we got KVD to come out and film a couple episodes with us too. We've got a couple episodes where we were talking about, like, throwing wigglers for coho and then switching to twitching for salmon. And I met KVD at the iCast, and actually had him come out and film a couple episodes with us, and it was great. And he was really good at it, but he wanted to see it too. And so maybe even having that, like, he's like, "No way, you're not doing it." No, that's what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. You got to come check it out. He's like, I'm gonna do it. He's like, I want to see that. I want to learn it. So I think there's a lot of merit to never being really closed mind, and just trying everything and working at it too.
That's awesome. And I mean, just like Kevin, his camera guys are extremely committed. If you don't know Brandon, he's a fantastic angler, great person, and he's a steelhead and salmon fisherman himself. But he's working long hours to make a career doing something that he loves to do. He works tirelessly to get to where he is in the industry now, and he's a key figurehead for, I mean, bass fishing as a whole. So it is possible. You've just got to put your head down and you've got to grind. But you also have to keep listening to more episodes of The Blast Off with Bray, because they premiere every Friday. We are getting ready to do that first giveaway, and as long as you can keep subscribing, following along, getting more involved, then we'll keep getting bigger and bigger. Maybe get to documentaries one day, get Cameron out there. We'll put him in front of a black bear. We'll get some good television rolling. But we do want to wish him luck in Alaska next week. Make sure you guys tune into Addicted Fishing to see what's going on with that, because I think it's going to be a fun story to tell, and one that you're going to want to see. We appreciate you coming on, Cameron. We'll see you in a couple weeks in the Super 60 at Brownlee Reservoir as well. But yeah, that's it for this one, everyone. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Blast Off.